Here from the Working Fans Podcast. And at the Working Fans Podcast, this is just a podcast that three lifelong fans created to have a place to talk comedy and pro wrestling. Now, our comedy podcast releases every Tuesday, while our wrestling podcast releases every Thursday. We release bonus episodes under the moniker Working Fans Presents every now and then. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, any major podcast provider. The important thing is just please like, rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to us. Now, we have started a new thing. We are now on Amazon and Audible. So those episodes release every Monday. And that's kind of going through the archives and just releasing our old episodes in a new area. So if you want to live through the process with us again, take that journey with us again, you can find us over on Amazon and Audible. Now, if you can't get enough of us in the audio form, check out our YouTube. It's youtube.com/C/Working Fans Wrestling Pod, or just search Working Fans Podcast on YouTube. We have the whole archive is up there. And if you listen to the Working Fans Podcast, you are more than familiar with the 531. That is our signature segment where we take your top 5 list on a particular subject, vote it down to a top 3, and then debate it down to a top 1. Now, guys, if you want to hear 3 guys talk shit about comedy, wrestling, life, anything, you will enjoy the Working Fans Podcast. Fans, welcome back for Working Fans Saturday, episode 45. We are making up for a week off. So this week, we are going to talk about Dynamite Grand Slam, last week's Rampage, this week's Dynamite, this week's Rampage, and we got a new weekly segment for you, the top 5 in wrestling this week. Now, next week, we're going to be talking our favorite live wrestling experiences of all time. On October 16th, we're going to be talking about the best sellers in the game. Think about Ricky Morton, Ricky Steamboat. When they get that arm really wrenched behind them, who sells the best? Now, October 23rd, we are going to be talking top 5 celebrity appearances in wrestling. Both the best sellers and the celebrity appearances in wrestling will be live 531s. And then to finish off the month, October 30th, we will be talking favorite Kurt Angle moments. Now I'm going to play the intro. I'm going to bring in Dave, and we're going to be talking a whole lot of Dynamite and Rampage. Producer Joe here from the Working Fans Podcast. Dave, it's Saturday. You know what that means. I'm not in the parking lot out in Hartford. I'm not out in the field out at Farm Aid, where I ran into Jake St. John and we took in some great music. We are back in the studios.
That ain't all they took
Dave's got a good lighting. Dave's got a nice lighting setup.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave, Dynamite, the last couple weeks has been amazing. The Dynamite Grand Slam, that was like nothing else I've seen from them. What did you think of that?
Oh, man, it was great. Bryan Danielson, that match he had with Kenny Omega was fantastic. I didn't mind it went to a draw. I loved it. And, there's so many good things that happened that night on Grand Slam. Ruby Soho made her, you got that world title match with Britt Baker. They got to close the show, which was kind of cool. We're live, brother. Things can go wrong. Hold on a second.
Yeah, Wi-Fi's been cutting out a little bit.
I think we've been talking about Britt Baker, Ruby Soho. It was a great Rampage. But in particular, I want to focus on Bryan Danielson a little bit here because his performance in that match with Kenny, and then on last night's Rampage with Nick Jackson, he's looking like a different wrestler. And I didn't think that was possible. Like, he's still doing a lot of stuff people like. He's still doing the kicks, and he's still doing, like, the flip out of corner. But he's adding little things. Like, he was a little more physical with Kenny. He really lit Kenny's chest up. There were different suplexes he was doing. And then even last night, too, I noticed the way he pulled at Nick Jackson's nose. Almost a little heel-like, but just more intensity. And just like, and Bryan Danielson is just an amazing performer anyway. So the fact that, like, he's adding like more wrestling and more physical, intensity to his matches. Dude, I love this guy already. It's like he's just my favorite wrestler at this point. Like, I want him to have this belt as well at some point.
Yeah, like watching him in ring during that Kenny match, he pulled out the cattle mutilation move.
Yes.
Last night, I thought versus Nick Jackson was just another great match. And it's good to see him on TV wrestling again when there was a while there where we didn't think we'd get that on a regular basis.
No, not at all. And as far as like, another thing that needs to be talked about MVP is CM Punk, coming out on AEW Grand Slam and, doing an interview, and then he comes back. He just calls it too. Like, you can tell he wants to play the tough guy and he's mad, but then he just smiles and breaks down because the people are loving him so much. And he talks about that and he builds up the match with Hobbs on Rampage. He has a great match with Hobbs, who's a different wrestler than Darby. And then, he comes out on Dynamite this week, does commentary. And last night, too, he records a segment again on Rampage. And I don't feel like he's overexposed yet. I think he's just adding to the show at this point.
Yeah, 100%. And what did you think of the 2-hour Rampage last week?
I don't know if I can do a 2-hour event every Friday night, but I definitely thought it was cool. I think it's great to have these special shows once in a while and add something to Rampage. I'm really loving this Friday night wrestling thing, Like last night, I thought SmackDown had a good show, and then Rampage followed it up with that Nick Jackson, Bryan Danielson match, and then even the ladies had a great match last night. And so I'm loving having Friday night wrestling back in particular. So I did enjoy the 2-hour Grand Slam Rampage. And I wouldn't want to have 2-hour Rampage all the time. But, like, I really am loving Rampage, and I'm loving just Friday night wrestling in general.
I like Friday night wrestling. I thought 2 hours was 1 hour too much because, that's just the appeal of Rampage. You get an hour of wrestling. It's a nice, solid show. You got the 2-hour Dynamite. I mean, you got Dark and Dark Elevation as well. So, I mean, if they do it once in a while, I'm not going to complain. But, like, I still haven't seen all of that Rampage Grand Slam. I was on the go that night, and I just haven't caught up with it over the week. Right.
You had a busy week. And Becky brings us some point, too. That's an MMA group. I'm forgetting their name. But the CFFC. So Punk is still doing commentary for them as well. On top of like making these appearances for AEW. So that's pretty cool. This guy's super busy, and you got to appreciate the hustle.
Yeah, now, I mean, that's all I really had to say about Dynamite and all that. It's been a big couple weeks for them. I feel like their only misstep, or the only thing they were catching flack about, was that second hour of Rampage. Otherwise, they've been next level with their programming, and it's been great to see. Now, Dave, we had a meeting yesterday. We're introducing a new segment to the show, our top 5 of the week in wrestling.
Yeah.
And we already covered number 1 on mine, which was Daniel Bryan back in wrestling, or Bryan Danielson. See, it took us so long to stop saying Bryan Danielson.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take just as long to stop saying Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, WWE had to give him such a similar name. And Bryan Danielson is one of those once-in-a-lifetime performers that – you just got behind him, and he made himself. That's another thing I want to talk about, actually, real quick before we just get into the segment. Like, he has no boundaries like in AEW compared to WWE. But not only that, too, I also feel like he's purposely just doing little different things to distinguish his game. You still have the people saying yes, 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 because he did carve out such a great name for himself out there as Daniel Bryan. But man, Bryan Danielson has got like Daniel Bryan plus like it's the American Dragon, and it's just turned up like it's insane. All right, I'm going off on this guy. I love him, Bryan Danielson. You're my hero wherever you are. Just if you see this, I love you, man. All right, bye.
Okay, so number 2 on my list is the first night of the WWE draft. Happened last night on SmackDown. I thought it made the show fairly interesting.
Yeah.
The first round of picks, Roman Reigns to SmackDown, Big E to Raw, Charlotte Flair to SmackDown, Bianca Belair to Raw. Second round of picks, Drew McIntyre to SmackDown, RK Bro to Raw, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods to SmackDown. So they broke up the New Day. They called Kofi and Xavier the New Day, but it's almost like they're splitting Big E away from them. And
they just brought him back too. Big E was on SmackDown. All right, so then
Edge went to Raw. The third round was Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss to SmackDown, Rhea Ripley and Nikki ASH to Raw, Hit Row to SmackDown, Keith Bearcat Lee to Raw. Fourth round, Naomi to SmackDown, Jeff Hardy to Raw, Rey and Dominic Mysterio to SmackDown, Austin Theory to Raw. That was all they did last night. And yes, we're all going to mourn Hit Row for the next 1,000 years.
I just want to say something before we get to your next top 5. All right. I did enjoy SmackDown last night. So this is just a criticism though. It was hard for me to swallow that nobody had drafted Becky Lynch, the women's champion, on there, but we drafted Happy Corbin and Riddick Moss's dumbass. I'm like, what the fuck? How is this even possible?
Well, there is half the roster was able to be drafted tonight. Half is going to be able to be drafted on Monday.
I get it, but
so
that's not how.
I figure that's where Becky will be drafted.
Oh, she will. Yeah, but the idea, like from a logical standpoint, that we're like, I want Becky, but we got to get Happy Corbin, bro.
But I think logic went out the window when we saw how the WWE has treated like 80% of black champions. Like,
hey, Bearcat Lee, baby. Let's do it. No limits. Next list.
So number 3 on my list this week was a link I sent to you last night. It was the Jon Moxley versus Nick Gage GCW Fight Club Countdown special. It's this little like 18-minute thing they put out featuring Nick Gage versus Jon Moxley at October 9th GCW Fight Club, who also on that card, Alex Zane versus Ninja Mac. If you've never seen Ninja Mac,
I haven't.
He does some great flips, and him versus Alex Zane will be insane. Atticus Cogar versus Jordan Oliver. That's going to be a great match. Effie versus Matt Cardona. Internet title versus GCW career. That is going to be almost as much of a draw as Moxley versus Gage. And if both of those weren't big enough draws for you, Mick Foley will make an appearance live in a GCW ring. And this is the first of a 2-day event. Aftermath is the next day, which features Minoru Suzuki versus Joey Janela. But this special was on my radar because it was so well done and it hypes you up so much for that match next week.
So first off, I didn't get that link. I might have missed it. I might have been in bed. I will check that.
Sent it to you and Scott.
I'll look for that. Thank you. Yeah, I know.
That might be in that thread.
Yeah, I caught that backly too. But that was more. I forgave that a little bit because of storylines. But yes, I'm excited for that. And Alex Zane too. By the way, keep it busy. He was actually on Impact Wrestling this week in a 3-way with Laredo Kid and Trey Miguel. Which congrats on Impact Wrestling getting some of this talent they're getting to use now.
Yeah, he actually kicked off the Get Lost a Lot event last week that I attended in New York versus AR Fox, an event where Japanese legend Minoru Suzuki got a Working Fans podcast shirt. I don't know if it made it home with him, but it made it to the back room at least.
That's right. Goddamn right it did.
Now, number 4 on my Northeast Wrestling Better Than You event that is live in Danbury, Connecticut tonight. 7:30 doors open. Just a few of the matches. You got Eddie Kingston versus Brian Anthony. You got Eric Redbeard versus Wrecking Ball Legursky. NEW champ and former guest of the show, Dan Moff versus Keith Youngblood. You got Private Party, who's going to be accompanied by Matt Hardy versus the Trust Fund with Jared Silverclight. And Will Ospreay versus Rocky Romero. Big event. If you're in the area and you're looking for a spare ticket, get at us. We might know somebody that can get you in. And lastly,
somebody.
Number 5 on our list, our 2-year anniversary show. If you haven't,
look at you.
It is episode. That's going to be 113 of the Working Fans podcast, where Dave and I, we do a 5-3-1 on top ECW champions. And then we had almost an hour talk just about the show. Now, after I get off this broadcast today, I will be cutting up the video and I will be getting it up on YouTube over the next couple days. And the video version is actually going to have a couple Easter eggs where me, Dave, and AJ filmed our recording area. So you get a little behind the scenes action and kind of like a little backstory into the podcast and like where it physically actually came from.
If this is episode 45 of our live show too, by the way, and that's 113, I'm thinking we did about 30 maybe comedy episodes or around that. And we're in the teens.
We have done 33 comedy episodes. This week's 531 Top Eddie Murphy movies coming up Tuesday. That's going to be episode 34 of the Comedy Cast. We are rolling forward.
We've done over 200 episodes. Then.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We're superstars.
That's right, baby. We put the work in Working Fans. Kiss my ass. You don't like us. We're the best. All right. Hold on a second. I got to pull up my top 5 of the week. I got distracted here. Some old bitch didn't know I'm in love now. All right. All right.
Get out of here.
Get out of here. I don't need you anymore, peas. All right. Top 5 of the week. I had Impact Wrestling announcing they have the digital belt. I don't know if it's going to be any good, but I'm interested in it. Interested in how they do. You know, it's going to be some kind of social media type title or something, it looks like. You know, I think they're going to have a 6-person match at Bound for Glory. And we'll just see how this plays out. But it's something different than the TV belt. And, hey, I'm interested. All right. I also got Sammy Guevara winning the TNT title this week. I just thought it was such a cool moment. I love Miro. I don't even know if it was the right time, but I thought it came off really well. I thought the story with Sammy and Fuego came off, you know, Fuego trying to help him. And then Sammy finally pulling it out. And they've done a really good job this year of building Sammy. Which it's funny because I thought Sammy was one of the guys that maybe wasn't quite getting enough shine. Like, if you look at his record, it was almost like 500 last year. But this year, since he came back to the Inner Circle after taking those couple weeks off, like, he's been on fire. And creatively's been behind him, obviously. And, yeah, good for Sammy. And we got an announcement, too, for next week. It's Sammy versus Bobby Fish, which I'm excited for that, to see those guys on Dynamite tear it up. But speaking of Dynamite, I got to go to my next big thing of the week. Get the Glock. Arn Anderson, baby. Glock Anderson. This guy cuts a promo and talks about blowing somebody's brains out on the street. Nobody can get away with that but Iron Anderson. Well done, Iron. I thought it was a talk all week. We were getting memes. Looks like 1, 2, 3. I might have missed one, but I got another one right here anyway. I might have to make up a 5th one on the spot. But I also wanted to throw out one, the WWE for last night. I did not include them guys. I'm not, Joe had mentioned SmackDown. I'm going to go a little different. I'm excited, and I didn't think the announcers made a big enough deal of this last night, but I'm excited that the King of the Ring is coming back next week, and it's going to be the debut of the Queen's Crown. I love those tournaments. I hope there's stakes involved, and I want to see more of that. Great choice back week. Brody's wife appearing on Dynamite. That was a great emotional segment. So I'm going to put that in there. That'll be my top 5. I know
everybody was ready for Bray Wyatt, and then it was probably the first time that like there was such anticipation for something. It didn't come through, and nobody was disappointed. Usually people would be like, "Oh, what the fuck? We thought Bray was coming out," but to see Brody's wife come out. I almost wanted to bring up that episode of Dynamite as a news item of my week because it was such a big thing to happen.
That's right, baby. We're live. We're getting some technical difficulties here today.
Oh,
Working
yeah.
Fans podcast is not afraid of adversity, though. We will fight to get in that ass, okay? We
That
deserve
Wi-Fi is fucking up now. What did you miss on that? What do I got to get back at you with?
We were talking about Bray Wyatt was not going to be at AEW. But...
Oh, yeah, and nobody was disappointed. No. And that's probably the first time that public anticipation got so big and nobody complained in the end. I thought it was a great overall tribute to Brody. AEW has started another foundation in a fallen wrestler's name. Yeah. So they're just doing more good, and it's great to see.
You know what's funny? Bray Wyatt, I think his contract is I think he's still got to no-compete for a little while longer.
Yeah.
But yet this week, Bobby Fish is going to debut, as we know. I know he's going to be in MLW Opera Cup, but he's also going to be in there fighting Sammy for the TNT title. But there's also doing that that ladders match for the brass ring, and there's a Joker. So there's going to be somebody else possibly. Every time they do a Joker, there's usually a debut. So I don't know, man. Every time I think like, okay, these guys can't have anybody else, they keep bringing someone else in. Yeah, ends October 26th. So obviously he wouldn't be on this week's Dynamite. So I'm kind of curious to see who ends up showing up as that Joker in that ladder match.
Yeah, let's check what day of the week Halloween is. Ooh, it's a Sunday. If Wyatt comes out that Wednesday the 27th or that Friday the 29th is like a Halloween themed surprise, that could be something.
Hangman, yeah, that'd be interesting. He makes his return as the Joker. I would be excited for that.
And it brings him back just in time for that Full Gear push.
Yeah.
And maybe get that title that he's finally getting. Unless, who do you think's more likely at this point, Bryan or Hangman for that?
I think we got to conclude I think we have to have Hangman. I'm sorry. I think we have to have Omega and Bryan Danielson wrestle at this point, at least. Even if Bryan doesn't get the belt, I think that match has to happen. I think Hangman does deserve his moment. And I think his moment is that story with Kenny and defeating the Elite. I think that's what has to be done. By the way, also very excited that FC Virginia, his hometown, though. That's interesting. Interesting point by Back. This is one of the great things I love about Dynamite right now is they're giving us a lot of possible, things that, make sense and they could go either way. And that's what's exciting.
Yeah. Now, how many more you got left on your top 5 of the week list?
It was it. I took that last one from Backley. I thought he had a great point with Amanda Huber showing up because I did not have I did not have my 5th one. So.
All right. Now, we've suffered through enough technical difficulties this week.
I'm hurting.
You know what, Dave, what was your match of the week? I'm going to give it to Danielson versus Nick Jackson.
That's a great one. And so I don't rip you off. I will go with
don't bite on my shit.
I won't. I will go with Sammy Guevara and Miro.
That is another great pick. A good way to end that episode. And Dave, remember next week we'll be talking our favorite live wrestling experiences.
Yes.
Maybe even AJ. I don't know. Let's see if we got enough birthday wishes saved up. Oh, here we go.
Cole versus Jungle Boy. Yeah, another great match that kicked off the show. Yeah, I'm excited for that. And let's see. By the way, one thing we did talk about SmackDown last night. One thing I have to say again, too, Pat McAfee. That fucking guy, they should be just paying him a truckload of money because he's making their shows better. How often do you have somebody who's just that excited to be there?
Yeah, and from what I've read, I forget where I saw it, somewhere on Facebook. Apparently, he doesn't make a ton from his commentary. He does it because he likes to be there. And guys, we like being here.
Great segue.
We're going to be here next week. So, guys, we will see you then. Have a good week.
200 plus bitches. Woo!